I was halfway through my first cup of coffee, staring out over the lake, when I saw a bulldozer rolling down our street like it had gotten lost on the way to a war zone. The sun was barely up. Birds were still fussing in the trees, and there it was, massive, yellow, trailed by two HOA board members in matching khakis like they were on some sort of mission. For a moment, I wondered if I was still dreaming. But the machine rumbled straight toward the strip of gravel that marks my driveway, right before it curls down to the lake. My lake. I almost choked on my coffee, watching a bulldozer trundling through our peaceful cul-de-sac, not a construction season in sight. You know what I mean? Nobody had filed for permits. Nobody had talked about shoreline work. Nothing. Then it hit me. The HOA had finally lost their minds about that dock scheme. They'd been yapping for months about community access, as if the lake was public, though every plot map in the county says otherwise. Boat launch, fishing, jet skis, right over my land. Apparently, today was the day they'd try to bulldoze their way to the water before breakfast. So I set my mug down, stepped to the porch rail, and waved like I was just saying, "Hey." Janet, the HOA president, always looking like she's sniffed bad milk, pointed at me, yelled over the engine, "We're moving forward today." Dock committee approved it unanimously. She said it like that made it legal. I called back, "Funny, last I checked, the dock committee doesn't own my shoreline." Carl, her sidekick, held up a stack of papers like he was Moses. "We have authorization," he shouted. "Authorization to trespass?" I walked down the driveway, voice calm, but feeling that cold twist in my gut. These folks really thought they could just roll a bulldozer over private property and nobody would stop them. The bulldozer jerked forward, gravel crunching. My driveway shuddered like it was bracing for impact. I looked the contractor in the eye and said, "Stop the machine." He hesitated, glancing between Janet and me. Janet jabbed her finger toward the lake. "Keep going. Don't let him intimidate you." By now, neighbors were popping out on their porches, some in pajamas, some clutching phones. Nobody could believe the HOA had brought out the heavy equipment before 9 a.m. I just stood in the middle of my driveway. No yelling. Just dead calm. The machine's bucket stopped 20 feet from me, caked in old dirt, like the jaw of some prehistoric beast. "If that thing moves another inch," I said loud enough for the whole crowd, "you'll be explaining to the sheriff why you drove heavy equipment onto private land without a permit." Carl wiped sweat from his brow, insisted, "It's community property by precedent." I almost laughed. Their only precedent was pushing boundaries and me pushing back harder. So I dropped my voice and said to the driver, "You kill that engine, turn around, and nobody's got to pay damages. Or you keep going, and your boss can explain why the sheriff impounded his bulldozer from my mud." The driver, a working guy just trying to pay bills, froze. For a second, the world seemed to hum with tension. Then he killed the engine. Janet spun on him like he'd just ruined the Super Bowl. "We had approval." The driver just shrugged. "Lady, I was told to clear a path, not start a civil war." The crowd cracked up. Janet's composure was shot. "This isn't over," she threatened. "The HOA will not be bullied." I grinned. "Funny, I was about to say the same to you." As the bulldozer backed out under a chorus of neighborly chuckles, I headed back to my porch. But I knew this was just the first round. That afternoon, I got a letter, official, aggressive, and signed by Janet, accusing me of obstructing community development. They were escalating. It was chess, not checkers, and I'd already mapped out their next move since Janet first brought up community dock access 2 years ago. That night, the contractor called me. Janet refused to pay him, said he breached the agreement. He wanted to know if I'd testify if things went legal. "Sure," I said. "By the way, what's the weight limit on that bulldozer?" He gave me the numbers, and I made a note. A week later, Janet and Carl were by the water with measuring tapes, whispering, "Next time, we bring it closer to the shoreline." "He can't block us forever," Carl hissed. "If we show the county it's underway, they'll have to let us finish." Momentum is everything. They thought half-burying a dock in mud would force the government to side with them. I nearly laughed out loud. Because that stretch of shoreline is nothing but soft, treacherous silt, even deer. Avoid it. I'd nearly lost a tractor tire in it once. If they tried again, the lake would do my fighting for me. Sure enough, the sequel arrived 2 days later. This time, not one but 2 bulldozers came crawling down the road, trailed by a whole caravan. Janet strutted like Napoleon, Carl barking orders. They rumbled right to the softest spot on the shoreline. The crowd grew, phones up, eyes wide. I just stood there, waiting. You're trespassing, I told them. Janet didn't even blink. The lakefront is for community use. Step aside. I held up the county's parcel map. My property outlined in thick ink. She didn't care. Then the first bulldozer rolled out onto the soft earth. It was steady for all of 5 seconds. Then one track sank, deep. The driver tried to gun it, but the machine just dug in. The second bulldozer crept forward to help and immediately started to sink, too. Janet screamed at the drivers to push harder, but the mud swallowed them both up. When the first bulldozer's bucket finally plunged into the lake, splashing Janet head to toe, the crowd roared. Phones caught every second. Janet spun on me, dripping, furious. You sabotaged this. I just shrugged. You'll have to take that up with gravity. Both drivers abandoned ship, mud up to their knees, shaking their heads. By noon, tow trucks lined up. The extraction was slow, humiliating. The story went viral. HOA sinks bulldozers in a legal dock attempt. But victory has shadows. The next day, another letter from the HOA's lawyer. Now they wanted me to pay for the bulldozers they sank on my land. It got ugly after that. Citations for landscape violations, mailbox paint, trash can placement. Janet weaponized the rulebook. But the more absurd it got, the more the neighborhood started laughing. Screenshots of my non-uniform gravel became memes. But her loyalists doubled down. The subdivision split right down the middle. The monthly HOA meeting turned into a circus. Janet reading off a list of my supposed crimes, slamming the gavel after each one. Are these really the battles you want? I asked the room. Laughter, then arguments, then chaos. That's when the vandalism started. Trash cans overturned, mailbox smashed, someone even spray-painted hoarder across my fence. I reported it, but everyone knew the score. One night, a neighbor named David, who's on the board, quietly told me, a lot of us are sick of Janet, but she's got just enough votes to hang on. Unless we can flip Linda. Linda hated the drama, but Janet convinced her I was the problem. So I gathered all the evidence, photos, letters, videos, left it on Linda's porch with a note. Make up your own mind. Next board meeting, Linda stood up. I've reviewed everything. This campaign is personal, not about the community. The board voted to suspend all citations. Janet's power cracked. She leaned in, whispering, you have no idea how far. I'll go. She meant it. Sabotage escalated. My canoe gashed, wires cut, sugar in my truck's gas tank. Sheriff Dan told me, keep your cameras rolling. So I did. One night, I caught Janet herself, wrench in hand, loosening bolts on my dock. Funny time for home improvement, I called out. She froze in the light, dropped the wrench, ran for the trees. Word spread fast. Linda called, we have the numbers to remove her. The emergency board meeting was packed. David called the vote. Janet was removed as president by a landslide. She hurled the gavel, stormed out. But everyone knew, losing her title wouldn't stop her. 2 nights later, my trail cam caught Janet backing a truck and bulldozer down to the lake at midnight. By sunrise, the bulldozer was half submerged in the shallows, the lake claiming its second victim. By noon, a news van was on the scene. Janet was finished, but the war wasn't over. Carl, her sidekick, took up the fight with paperwork, adverse possession, lawsuits, anonymous attacks online. The subdivision turned into a battleground, signs popping up on lawns, even kids fighting over whose dad was the thief. One night, a brick crashed through my window, Carl's handwriting on the note. You haven't won. The tension simmered until the day Carl and Janet rolled out one last convoy. Dump trucks, cement mixers, the works, claiming they'd secured permits. The neighborhood poured out, arguments erupted, and then, right on cue, the sky broke open in a storm. The bulldozers hit the silt, spun, and slid into the lake. The sheriff arrested Carl and Janet on the spot for trespass and forgery. The war ended with the HOA board dissolving itself, neighbors tiptoeing back to civility, the lake slowly returning to peace. But scars linger. Sometimes, you have to burn everything down before you can rebuild. And when I look out at the water now, I remember every battle, because entitlement sinks, but the lake endures. So tell me, what would you have done? Who was right? Who crossed the line? Drop your thoughts below. Let's see where you stand on justice, community, and the true cost of peace.